Now this is an interesting, I don't know if I should call it a turn of events exactly, but Blythe Masters, that chick worked for JP Morgan under Jamie Dimon, in charge of the commodities division, who you and I both know were part of the market rigging operations for gold and silver, hands down. Blythe Masters joins Bitcoin startup. What did I just hear? This is from Zero Hedge. About a year ago, we wrote that the farce is complete when we learned that former head of JP Morgan's commodities group, Blythe Masters, the person caught red-handed in trying to pull the Enron 2.0 and responsible for manipulating electricity prices in California, was about to actually join the CFTC, the regulator. Yes, the person who created perhaps the most important derivative product of the pre-cash period, the massively levered credit default swaps, was about to become an advisor to the very agency tasked with regulating all derivatives. Just 24 hours later, following a furious public backlash against what is perhaps the most corrupt regulators in the United States, the CFTC, Ms. Masters withdrew her candidacy from the CFTC. The reason for the populist fury was not so much that Blythe was caught and then let go in trying to pull off another Ken Lay. She got away, he didn't. But due to prevailing anger at the one person who many personify with all that is manipulated in the gold market. Recall that long before the world's biggest banks were busted for rigging precious metals, that Blythe Masters made one of her rare appearances on CNBC telling the channel that, quote, and I did a video on this too, JP Morgan's commodities business is not about betting on commodity prices, but about assisting clients. It's about assisting clients in executing, managing their risks and ensuring access to capital so they can make the kind of large long-term investments that are needed in the long run to expand the supply of commodities. And then it said, the lady said to her, there's been a tremendous amount of speculation, particularly in the blogosphere, on this topic. I think the challenge is it represents a this is her still speaking. I think the challenge is it represents a misunderstanding as the nature of our business. As I mentioned earlier, our business is a client-driven business where we execute on behalf of clients to achieve their financial and risk management objectives. The challenge is that commentators don't see that. So to give you a specific example, we store significant amounts of commodities, for example, silver. On behalf of customers, we operate vaults in New York City, Singapore, and London. And often when customers have that metal stored in our facilities, they hedge it on a forward basis through JP Morgan, who in turn hedges itself in the commodities markets. If you see only the hedges in our activity in the futures market, but you aren't aware of the underlying client position that we're hedging, that would suggest inaccurately that we're running a large directional position. In fact, that's not the case at all. We have offsetting positions. We have no stake in whether precious metals prices rise or decline. Rather, we're running a flat or relatively flat matched book. What is commodity commonly out there is that JP Morgan is manipulating the metals market. It's not part of our business model. It would be wrong, and we don't do it. Right. But you guys have, as she said, clients. And if that client is the United States federal government and it doesn't want the precious metals prices to rise, it has an unlimited supply of money to throw into that account and on that position to crush all other positions. And yes, lose massive amounts of money, but it doesn't matter because they just print it out of thin air anyways. It means nothing. So, this is a long article. We're going to kind of scroll down here. So, alright. So Blythe said she had held discussions with the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England, and New York's Department of Financial Services about the new venture, though it would not need regulators' blessing because it was not an exchange, a custodian, or a money transmitter. In fact, it is not exactly clear just what DAH is. That's the company, DAH. So it's not clear just what it is, which perhaps is just how Blythe and her co-workers just want to keep it. Quote, it will admit creditworthy members, such as big banks and asset managers, to trade between themselves using DAH's technology. So what does it sound like to me? Well, hold on. So how did Masters end up at DHA? That's also unclear. She would not say how much she had invested nor when the venture would launch. DAH was founded last year by Sunil Hirani, founder and chief executive of TrueEX, an exchange for interest rate swaps, and Don Wilson, founder and CEO of DRW Trading, a proprietary trading firm. The venture has employees in New York, Chicago, and Tel Aviv, a cryptocurrency hub. Perhaps the logo of the company should be, because you know your digital money is safe in Israel. Joking aside, it sounds like what Masters and her startup are trying to do is implement a form of centralized financial bazaar for all things Bitcoin related. Yes, a SWIFT, if you will, for the digital currency. Quote, we feel that some of the basic plumbing is missing in the system, said Mr. Wilson of DRW. Bridging the gap between Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies and traditional currencies is a problem. One settles immediately. One settles over a day or more than a day. Participants in this ecosystem will be able to control who they're transacting with because it's within a closed system where we can control who's in the pool. And then they say, well, good luck with all that, because the whole point of Bitcoin is to keep it as decentralized as possible, and any venture that attempts to streamline its effectiveness or efficiencies is doomed to fail as alternative, and free services emerge instantly. Which is why perhaps instead of conducting her outlined business plan, one which is doomed to failure, Blythe should just focus on doing what she does best, coming up with ways to boost the leverage of the underlying product by a factor of 20 and provide a more liquidity, massively levered tool which allows traders to take on positional bets while pretending to hedge and without having the required capital outlays, as in credit default swaps. Perhaps the time of Bitcoin default swap has truly arrived. Sarcasm aside, what today's latest news reveals is the explanation why back in December 2013, when Masters was still with JP Morgan, the bank mysteriously tried to spawn its own electronic currency alternative. And I do remember covering that too. So, now that I can give you some of my thoughts on this, so there's two things here. Again, the positive and or the negative. I'm going to give you both sides of what this could mean. Because there truly is. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as, hey, there is no positive. This is negative. You're a scammer, and, you know, we know what you're doing. So, either A, let's go with the positive scenario. She knows, and believe me, she's one in the know of everything. She knows that Bitcoin and whatnot is going to do very, very well in the coming future on the global financial scene. Let's just say she's well aware of that fact. She knows it, so she's creating her own, again, what she considers a SWIFT system, just like the SWIFT international banking system where you can wire money, etc. But it does take a day, 2 days, 3 days sometimes, depending on where your money's going using the SWIFT system, and they charge a little fee, of course. What she's suggesting is, well, you know, Bitcoin can be transferred instantaneously with no fee, and I could just punch in a code, your Bitcoin wallet number, so to speak, and then within 10 minutes or so, it's in your, you know, your computer's online anywhere in the world, or multiple computers that you have access to that have your wallet on them will all see the transaction simultaneously. So the point of that is there's actually some redundancy there. If your computer crashed at home, well, the one I got at work has my wallet on it too. Nothing changed. Everything's good. So what she's suggesting is, well, yeah, but when you start treating Bitcoin like a financial instrument, which has been the case, where, again, if I look at the price of Bitcoin today and it's $300 per Bitcoin, that means it's worth $300 US. I can sell this digital currency for paper currency. So, it's almost as if Bitcoin is some kind of commodity, like it's gold or silver or oil or energy or, something, corn, food, commodity. Yet it's a digital nothing being treated as a commodity. Which is in itself crazy, because again, the premise of it from the beginning was this is a digital currency, not something to be traded for other currencies. This was going to replace the broken fiat paper money system if it could ever get to that level. That's what the founders wanted. What she is saying is, well, we recognize people trade it for other currencies, and again, if today it's worth $300 for one digital Bitcoin, then how do I go and sell that Bitcoin and then get the money for it? Well, if you want it very quickly, go to Blythe's new company, set up an account there, and when you buy, sell, and trade Bitcoins there, you don't have to wait an extended period of time to get your cash. We will wire it to you immediately, etc. So if you sold, 20 Bitcoins, you're going to have that cash done through our, Swift, or what are we going to call it? Blythe Swift system, if you will, at her new company. And naturally there will be fees involved, where she picks a little fee off of every single transaction, a percentage. Now that's the good, happy, side of things, the positive spin. That's what her intentions are. Now, all is good. She's capitalizing on something she sees as the future, which also says, well, Bitcoin's going to be doing very well in the future if she's willing to deal with that right now and set up a company, a startup, to be the core transactor Swift, if you will, system within Bitcoin, which, as they explained, was never designed for that anyway, so we don't know what she's doing. Therefore, my opposite spin on this story is that just like gold and silver and all other commodities, just as she was in charge of the clients we have at JP Morgan, we do their bidding for them. They just, we're the middleman. They have the position. They use us to transact for them that position. So in other words, what she's saying is, if we have a client that decides to dump, the entire year worldwide production of silver mining, all on paper, and dump it in one day, one trading session in a day, and cause the price of silver to go down from $49 down to, $40. We didn't do it, they did it. So that to me means she wants to be in a position where she's not just handling Swift transactions, she's going to be doing the bidding, again, for other big players, other corporations, and people that want to deal with us being their Swift system for Bitcoin, if you will. When in reality it could be, no, we just want to make sure that when Bitcoin is going crazy, we can't have it going crazy, just like we can't have gold and silver going crazy. So we're definitely going to have a client, United States government, who has these incredibly large positions, short sometimes, long sometimes, whenever they need the price to go up or down, when they keep it steady. They flood the market, they buy it back, they flood the market, they buy it back. Two different entities, right? They're same client, same person with two. It's like you having two checking accounts at two different banks, and you transfer money from one bank A to bank B checking account, and then when that one gets a little too full, you take it from bank B and transfer it back to bank A checking account. And meanwhile, every time you do that, you're crushing everyone else who's participating in that market, because you're moving the market, because the amount you're moving is so massive. Nobody has those kinds of positions, which is why they said, well, JP Morgan alone has the lion's share of paper contracts. And JP Morgan says, well, not us per se, but our clients. So it looks like it's us because we're the ones doing the transactions for them. And that part's true. Yeah, we have the lion's share of paper contracts under our belt, so to speak. But it's not really us. We're doing it for someone else, our client, and we're allowed to do that. So is Blythe, who was in charge of that at JP Morgan, doing just that by chance, is she going to do the same thing, since she's an expert at it, through her new Bitcoin thing that she wants to control, which in my opinion is not going to be just to so people can get their money in and out of the Bitcoin system quicker, as in, I'm trading Bitcoins for cash. They can get their money quicker and safely. No, I think they're going to have clients using her new company to do their bidding for them again. And if Bitcoin rises too much, well, they just flood the market with, again, paper cash to buy up all the Bitcoins that people are selling. You saw Bitcoin rise to over $1,100 not all that long ago, a couple years back or whatever, right? It may have been higher than that. I know it was over $1,100. It may have been $1,200 or $1,300. I know it was over $1,100. And then to think, when this thing was created, it was worth pennies, and for the longest time a couple bucks. And to think how many Bitcoin you could have bought if you had $500, $2 a Bitcoin, or a grand, let's say, $2 a Bitcoin. You'd have 500 Bitcoin with $1,000. And if you had 500 Bitcoins, and you sold them when it was $1,000 for easy math, 1,000 times 500, $500,000 on this digital nothing, created out of the digital whatever, ether, if you will. Which again, in and of itself, is ridiculous when you really think about it. But it became something and quickly had to be squashed. So that's when I'm telling you, the U.S. government stepped in and started buying up all the Bitcoin. So yeah, there were plenty of people who sold 1,100, 1,200, 1,000, 800, 900, wherever it was at, and the federal government was paying all those people. You didn't know who it was. But I would love to say, well, listen, the Bitcoin founder, you have, right, we all do, basically. We download what they call the blockchain. So every single transaction that ever happened is downloaded. Can't we see who was doing a lot, where most of the transactions went during this time period of $1,100, $1,200 Bitcoin down to, $200 something dollars? Can't we kind of figure out who was doing most of the buying on that one and find that little, piece of the blockchain? Oh, it's the same entity over here. Oh, well, that's, again, that'd be that same entity. You can just call it the federal government. So if the federal government had to do that in an emergency because they had to get control over this thing, they can't have it becoming a competing currency again against the U.S. dollar and everything else. They have to keep it under control. Then they really need someone else, a third-person party, to do what they did with J.P. Morgan and say, you guys create your own entity and we'll become a client of yours under the radar. We don't want to have to do this ourselves and actually physically get into the Bitcoin market. At the same time, they have been this whole time. Why do you think Bitcoin prices have stayed where they are? 250, 300, 250, 300. They never have broke out to go there again like that. So either A, she recognizes it's coming, it's going to happen, wants to capitalize on that fact, and the first story I gave you, and it's completely legit, even though she was in charge of J.P. Morgan's commodities and dealing with the clients raping and pillaging the market. She was just doing her job. This is different, and we're just going to create like a SWIFT system for Bitcoin. Which again, the whole, as they said, we don't need a centralized hub to mess with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is designed to be decentralized. It already is, so we don't know what you're going to be doing. And again, I don't know, but the other side is that she wants to go in there and do what she did at J.P. Morgan and basically control the market and have a whole bunch of clients with huge, enormous sums of money who can push the market wherever they want, the Bitcoin market. But again, either A, they're preparing for the collapse of fiat currency and want to take their money and put it into Bitcoin and make tons of money doing it that way so they don't get as hurt when the financial collapse comes. Or there's some other motive. Very interesting nonetheless. Blythe matters and the word Bitcoin shouldn't be on the same sentence. Should not even be in the same conversation. And yet it is. So my, again, past thoughts, experience is going to be there's something more to this than her just deciding to create a nice little startup venture to make some money on the side. you know, or her new, not make money on the side, but, you know, my new venture, to be a profitable company, and that's all we want to do. There's no way that she would make a decision like that. I think it's for some type of control, so they can have a lot of the transactions come through them when it comes to selling and buying for their clients. But again, any person in the world can make a transaction with another person in the world for Bitcoin. You can say, wire me $300 today. Here's my bank account number, my routing number. And as soon as I see the wire transfer, I'll send you my Bitcoin. Now, naturally, what's to stop someone from accepting that wire transfer and then say, I'm not sending you the Bitcoin? So then you have two people who are or one person upset with the other person because they just stole their money. But again, there are numerous exchanges out there already that deal with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. You can sign up as an account there. The other person signs up there. They are a seller. You're a buyer, let's say. And that exchange does take a little tiny fee off of the top. And then you've got your money. And that person got their Bitcoin. Or you get the Bitcoin and they get their money, vice versa. They're already there. So essentially what she's saying is she wants to do one of those. But it's a little differently. Like it's going to be kind of like the SWIFT system. I don't know what the hell she's doing. All I can say is now, let's just wait and see where this goes and where Bitcoin goes and how this is affected. Because if it stands out that she's manipulating, or manipulations occurring there, just like the commodities market, and we know the CFTC corrupt regulators, worse in history. We've already been able to point a finger on that, shine like that. We know that's a fact. We'll be able to point it right over at Blythe's new company and find out the same information too. So, I thought I'd share that with you. Very, very interesting. Take care.